What's up, yo? Welcome to the Young Legends podcast, where we teach you the cheat codes to the game of life. I'm your host, Caption, aka Caption Red, and I'm super excited about my guest today, Mr. Tal Oran. Tal, how you doing today, brother?
Doing very good. Excited for this podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you, and then we're going to get rolling. All right, here we go. My guy named Tal is straight up off the wall. Shows how you could have a ball, how you could have it all. At the age of 17, was wise beyond his years. He built up his dreams by conquering his fears. Scraped from place to place, the man in the arena, not afraid to make mistakes, but sees them as his teachers. With the world as his classroom, infinite in lessons. And with the learner's mind, he's winning through his questions. He sailed the open seas, and he's here to teach you how. Brought the world to your door so you could break on out and go. Meet the beautiful people and see breathtaking sights. Climb your life's mountains and find joy in the hike. Now it's time to take a trip, so get your bags packed. Let's go on a journey with the traveling Clatt.
Yo!
Yes, sir.
Baby! What the heck, man? I was not expecting that.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I'm glad you had the shades.
Yeah, it's like my friend just forgot these here the other day. I was like, oh my God, prop, good. That was awesome, man. Thank you. I appreciate the rap. That was super cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. You know what? I appreciate you being on here. You know, I'm inspired by your life. I'm inspired by all the cool things you've been doing, traveling and whatnot. And so I was like, man, let me introduce my guy properly the way he should be. And so there that is.
That's super cool, man. I really appreciate that. Actually, that's the second time somebody's ever rapped about me, but this one had a lot more detail in it, and it was very cool. I appreciate you went through all the little nuances of my life. That was super cool.
Yeah. I tried. Yes, sir. So I've been having a real good time watching your videos, you know, kind of, being a fly on the wall in your life. And I love what you're doing. I love that you're just this young fella who just said, why not? And rolled on out. And so the way I like to start my podcast is I always ask my guests to share a fun story, an interesting story, a cool story. I imagine you have a few stories to share. And so, I was wondering if you could share a story with us.
Yeah, sure. I think I'll go with something relevant to the Philippines because I'm here right now and it's relevant to my life now. So this is sort of a pandemic story. Mm-hmm. And I have a full YouTube video on this. Actually, I made like a bit of a documentary. So if anybody wants to watch that after seeing this to see the exact details, you can check it out on my YouTube channel. But this was January 2020. I had arrived to the island I'm at right now called Siargao, which is like a surfing capital of the Philippines. My friend had gifted me a Suzuki multicab, which is sort of like an open air van that people use here as like sort of public buses. There's things called jeepneys and multicabs. So my friend had one that was just sitting around, you know, it's worth like maybe $900. It was in pretty bad condition. So me and my Australian friend Brandon that we were traveling together at the time, we took it, we painted it, we fixed it up, we took it to a mechanic, and we decided to drive it across what's known as the most dangerous island in the Philippines, Mindanao. And so we took it on this amazing road trip. And as we were driving around, this was now early March, we started seeing like all the news of the coronavirus and the pandemic starting to really kick off around the world. The Philippines started getting its first 100 cases. And I eventually made it to a city called Cagayan de Oro. I was there on the first day of the lockdown in the Philippines, which was March 16th. So I'm chilling in this apartment. I booked myself an Airbnb and I was like fully expecting this to be like, oh, okay, 2 weeks back to normal life, you know, like everybody was saying 2 week lockdown, whatever. So 2 weeks turned into almost 3 months, like really quickly. I pretty much ended up spending March till May completely by myself in a city that I was never in before. I had no friends there. I was all by myself. And I was only about a 7-hour drive away from the island that I'm currently on, which had a bunch of my friends. And I was actively for 2 months trying to process the right documentation because all of a sudden the bureaucracy in the Philippines went from like relatively easy to get around from place to place to like super hard. You had to process all these documents to go from place to place. And around 2 months in, I managed to get some confidence from the different government organizations I was speaking to, that I had the proper documentation. I was walking around with a freaking chest x-ray, like a psychopath. Like I had a laminated chest x-ray. I was walking around like Joker, like, no, I'm good. This is before like proper antigen testing and PCR testing, like super early on in the pandemic. So I made my attempt to come to the island. It's a 7-hour drive. You pass through 3 different municipalities in one region of the country. Same island. You don't have to take any ferries until the end. So I rented a private van for like $160 just so I would be completely by myself, social distancing. I made it through 11 out of 12 checkpoints. I made it to the last checkpoint of the whole journey with no problems. They let me through every single time. Even in one of the bigger cities, Butuan, they gave me a police escort just because I was a person under suspicion. So they gave me a police escort through the city to make sure that I didn't pass through the city, even in my own private van. And then we get to the last checkpoint on the border of Surigao City, which is the connection to the island that I'm on in Siargao. And this lady would not let me through the border. She was like, there is no way you're getting through. I showed her every document I had, and she was hell-bent on not allowing me through the border. And that turned into me I had to get arrested on a technicality because the police wanted to help me through the border because they didn't see a reason for me to be held. The border, like the province, did not want to let me through. And it was all new coronavirus protocol, so nobody knew what to do with me. So I couldn't go back to where I came from. I couldn't proceed forward. I was stuck in limbo. So I had to get arrested, but I wasn't arrested on a crime. I was arrested on a technicality. So they couldn't put me in the cell with the inmates. So I ended up sleeping for 7 days in a hut, just like in a bamboo hut on the floor. No like mattress, no shower. And they fed me very well. But yeah, I basically had to get arrested and just sleeping in this hut for 7 days until they managed to help me process the paperwork to move on to the island and then quarantine. But that was one of the most insane experiences of my life. Like just an absolutely crazy experience. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but apparently walking around with a chest x-ray and sleeping in huts isn't normal. It's like, it's Monday through Friday for me.
Yeah. That's wild. Oh, man. You should come over here. You'll get along great here.
I fit right in. That's cool, man. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. I love it. All right. So that is not the fun, cool story I was hoping for, but here we are, unprecedented times, right? So
yes.
It's awesome. Absolutely. So, I want to go back to where your journey started. I watched your first video. I was astounded. I'm just gonna be honest. 17-year-old kid just saying, hey, let's go for it. Let's travel the world. Let's see where this takes me. And so my understanding of it is that your parents weren't very supportive of what you were doing as becoming a traveler. First off, when you started, did you think that this was going to be like a road that you're going to go on? What did you see this going as you started, I guess?
I always saw it as a potential like reality because I call myself and the creators that came around the same time as me sort of like the second generation or the third generation of travel video creators on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And so we refined what others did before us. But so there was already sort of a generation of people doing it before I did. So I knew it could have been a reality, but I never could have imagined the success that I had. And I think my success is still relatively small in the general scheme of things, but I could have never imagined where it got to now. I always played with the idea, but I didn't think it was actually possible for me.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And apparently you weren't the only one who didn't think it was possible because you had parents that did not want you to go and do this. You even had a friend that didn't want you to go after this. What was that conversation like?
Well, so my closest friend, Moshe, he was, we've known each other since middle school at the time. So we always sort of grew up with this ideals of going to college. And he's always tried to push me to be the best version of myself. And I mean, same thing was with my parents. My parents are, at the same time, even till this day, the most supportive and the least supportive people in my life because they are, the concept of what I do is so far removed from their lives. They're both immigrants from Israel to the United States. They busted their butts to create a careers and lives for themselves in the United States. And then they see their kid running around traveling the world with a camera and making questionable amounts of money and success for the future. So I think they always, especially in the beginning of this, before they saw any sort of financial gains in my life, they were like, what is he doing? He's throwing away everything that we gave him and everything we tried to teach him. And I felt that from a lot of people. There were very few people in the beginning that supported me until I started making money and making a name for myself. which is understandable. Anytime you're doing something new, looking back at it now, I can see where they were coming from, but I'm happy that I didn't listen to anybody.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So with that being said, what advice do you have for someone who's chasing a dream and not getting the support that, they want from their family and their friends?
I think that paving a new path in life is something where the rules are obscured. Like, it could go anyway. You're taking a gamble and you're taking a risk. I think you have to calculate risk according to your personal situation in life, right? Depending on where you came from, what's your real potential outcome, and how much do you have to lose? How much time do you have left to keep going? For me, I started my journey at 17, so I knew for a fact that I could mess up many times and I'd still have time to, I'm only 25 now, but I'm really proud of where I've come from at the age of 25.
Sure.
So I think if you're older, maybe you calculate risk in a different perspective. But I think if you're young and there's something new that you want to try, I'm a full supporter of don't listen to the people around you. As long as you're not risking other people's lives or yourself, do what you feel is the right thing. And as long as you're young and you have time to recoup if you make mistakes, I think it's the best possible thing for you is to just try new things. Sure.
Absolutely. That's great. And was there anywhere that you leaned on for support? Or, I mean, I kind of get the feeling that you're one of the people who just like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show everybody what I can do. And maybe that lack of support is kind of like motivation for you. Or is that not right?
It's more motivation for sure. Like I'm never one to want to show somebody up, but when somebody tells me no, it makes me want it even more, just for my own personal, gains. But, within the journey of being not rejected, but told no or told don't do this or advised, it caused a lot of psychological like anxiety and panic attacks and stuff that I had to deal with early on, like to work through.
Oh, yeah.
It just made it difficult not having a support system of people who understood what it was like to travel the world. I come from a place where traveling, like especially in the United States, there's not a big culture about traveling internationally. And the people in my immediate surrounding in Miami, you tell them, hey, I'm flying off to Africa or I'm going to somewhere in Southeast Asia. They're like, what? Why would you go there? Like, it's so dangerous and so scary. Right. You just stay here in Florida. Everything's safe and fun here. So I definitely never did it in spite of people, but it's something that definitely helped me motivate myself. And every time I made those little successes and things, when I hit another milestone of subscribers or I got my first check or my second check, I was like, damn, I'm doing something right. And everybody said this wasn't possible. So I know that they're wrong. I know that what I'm doing is the right path and the right journey to be on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And it's cool to see you grow from your, early on videos, because you not that you didn't have some, natural abilities, but you've come a long way. And that's really cool. So
thanks, man.
So I'm glad that you brought up anxiety, just because a lot of people might see you and they might just be like, this dude is he's fearless. He's just this superhero, rolls out of bed and just kind of goes for it. So what fears did you have to overcome in order to become a travel vlogger? And how did you overcome them?
Well, I think early on, especially in high school, and when I was 17, just sort of going into this YouTube channel, I definitely was dealing with a depressive sort of mindset. I was bouncing in and out of depression frequently, and I definitely had a lot of anxiety and a lot of panic attacks, like very frequently. And it was based around financial instability, family stuff, just, all kinds of stuff when you're a teenager. I think after a year or so of figuring out a groove with traveling, like how I could work jobs, quit them, go backpacking, and actually it worked. And I realized how small the world really was. It wasn't as big as I thought it was. You could get from United States to Europe relatively easily for relatively cheap and go to Asia and go to Africa, whatever. Once I started figuring out the roadmap, it became easier. I think that the thing for me with this career path, especially early on when I didn't know exactly what I was doing, there wasn't a guidebook per se, I couldn't really ask the bigger travel vloggers if they could help me or give me advice because they weren't around and they wouldn't respond to their messages. They were so famous and growing so fast that they weren't accessible. Mm-hmm. And especially for me, I try never to bring it to a racial point or anything, but I think there's an element of truth to it. There's not many people on YouTube, especially in the travel vlogging world, who look like me, who come from my cultural background, have my color skin, sure, my weight, my facial features, who are traveling full time. So I really felt isolated, like I really had to carve my own path. But again, once I started making those little successes and figuring it out, definitely the anxiety became more confidence, and the panic attacks became more worries about how I can succeed in the future and how I can turn those worries into a business choice. And it took years. It really took years. It was difficult in the beginning, but I used a lot of practices like yoga and meditation to work through it, and really just keeping an open mind and trying to learn from as many people around me. I try to have conversations and learn from, I'm always traveling around older people since I was, younger. I've always been surrounded by people who are 5 to 10 years older than me at all times. And I feel like people who are older than you, especially people who have been traveling, have so much knowledge to give you. So I just try to latch on like a leech and really listen and intake things that people tell me and learn from it, how to improve my life. So it was a lot of learning and it took a lot of time, but it's definitely possible.
That's awesome, man. And I'm glad you tapped into the older heads because, man, if someone's been traveling for 10, 15 years, they probably know a thing about traveling that you don't, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. That's awesome. Very cool. And so, as you have had your successes and stuff, I've heard you say somewhere that you hate Instagram or you don't like what it stands for. Yet I see you use Instagram. I've reached out to you via Instagram. Mm-hmm. And so how do you navigate with something that you kind of just don't like and you use it, but at the same time, you're trying to maintain, your mental health and avoid narcissism and all those negative things that come with Instagram?
Yeah, it's actually a good question. Something I'm actually really passionate about is my hatred, quote unquote, for Instagram. So it's something that developed relatively recently. I was actually one of the first users on Instagram. I remember when they came out, I think I had the app and it was publishing pictures from the first week or the first month that Instagram launched. I was a huge proponent of it as a social media in the beginning. I was like, this is way better than Facebook. Such a cool way to connect with people. And I was really passionate about photography at the time. So I was super happy about Instagram when it first came out. I remember the first draw for me was when they shifted the timelines from chronological to something that they were trying to feed you stuff. And it just became an annoyance where you were trying to find your friend's post or scroll through a newsfeed chronologically. And then all of a sudden you were just being fed posts that they wanted you to look at. And that prioritized people with perfect bodies or trying to sell you products, sort of giving you an unhealthy image in the feed. Now, again, I'm a person who's very self-critical, self-introspective. I like making fun of myself. I know that I'm not a supermodel. I know that I'm fat and I look a certain way I do. And I love joking around about myself and I love making fun of myself. So I won't say that Instagram per se affects me, but I see how it affects different people. I see, for example, in the Philippines, how it affects Filipino people because people in the Philippines are crazy about social media. And I can see how Instagram affects and shapes the way that they live their life, Instagram and Facebook. And for me, it's turned into sort of just a rejection of the system of wanting to upload because I have nothing to really gain from it. I've seen the sort of inner industry, especially with travel influencers, of how Instagram works. And it's you go to a location, you take a bunch of pictures of the same exact thing. It's not interesting. It's amazing. Don't get me wrong. They do really amazing things, but you go in and Photoshop and then delete all the people there. And you try to make these unrealistic expectations of what a travel photo is or what traveling is. And then you have 100 influencers uploading the same exact picture and the same exact pose with the same camera and the same clothes. And for me, it feels disingenuous. I've never been one to follow the crowd in life, so I'm not going to do that with my content as well. I won't say that I haven't done it in the past. I tried, especially when I was doing my first trip around the world. I tried to sort of follow that Instagram influencer mindset. If you scroll back on my Instagram feed to 2017, you'll see me posing in the desert and wearing nice clothes and stuff. And then I realized I was like, it's not me. I don't like it. I'm not into this. And the last years, especially since the pandemic started, it's been a full rejection of what the app stands for and just trying to connect with my audience. If it's goofy pictures, if it's high quality or not, just trying to show them what I'm up to and what I like doing. And I will say just the people who follow me on Instagram, it's easiest for me to reach out to them via DMs and private messages and also via stories. It's somewhere where I get to connect with them better than YouTube or Facebook or anywhere else. So I do use the app in that mindset, uploading what I'm doing in real time and reaching out to them, being able to contact them via DMs. But as for actual posts on Instagram, and I'm just not into it. I just really don't like it. I don't like what the app stands for at this point.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you gave. I didn't know that they Photoshop people out of the photos.
Oh
That's
yeah.
crazy.
Oh yeah, dude, they'll Photoshop the sky. If you ever see a picture from travel influence with a starry night, be very critical. Try to zoom in and see the fine edge. You'll probably see that they Photoshopped the sky out and replaced it with stars. A lot of people do that.
That is insane. And I guess that's just the game, right?
It's the game.
Everybody's just doing it.
And you can make money off of it by duping people into thinking that you're doing or uploading different things. It just, for me, once I hit a point of financial stability where I felt like I didn't need to do these things, I was like, okay, I really don't want to be a part of this.
Right. Absolutely. Man, that reminds me of the picture where people put the two fingers in front of their laptop with the beach. Do you know what I'm talking about? They have like their two fingers like right here, and then it looks like their legs, but it's just their two fingers in front of a picture of the beach.
Yes.
That's what that reminds me of. That's crazy. Oh my gosh. So going back to something you said earlier, there aren't a lot of people that look like you, that, you're atypical in the travel vlogging world. And I've heard you say somewhere that you just don't care about, the hate speech and the racist comments and all that stuff that comes on your channel. I guess like that, I'm glad that you're that way. First off, that's awesome. But how did you always feel that way, or did you have to come to that perspective?
I think the first year or two on YouTube, it was hard because I was, and this was before I even hit 5,000 subscribers. It was like really, really early on, very small amount of comments and views and stuff. But I think that first initial push of getting absolute strangers trying to find out who I am and digging into the fact if I'm Jewish or not, or if I'm Israeli or not, or trying to find out my nationality and where I'm from, and then cursing me for the way that I look, or assuming that I'm a nationality or ethnicity that I'm not, and giving me or blaming me for the stereotypes of that. I think early on, that stuff really it gave me like a bitter taste in my mouth. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do this. This is kind of like scary, And then I don't know, after the second year, it was really like right after the second year of doing it consistently for 2 years, I just like my skin just toughened up. It just became like, why would I care about what these random people have to say? And then I just started having fun with it. Like when the comments came in that were rude or racist or whatever, I would just reply to them super weird, uncomfortable things, and I'd always see them either it would make them even angrier, or they just wouldn't know what to respond. And it's just stuff that, like, if somebody sent me like, "Oh, you dirty, disgusting Jew," I would just give them like a kissy face, like, "Love you too, babe," and they like it would really throw them off, or they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Sure.
So I don't know. My skin thickened after that second year, and I just became really confident with what I was trying to do. I could see that my image and the way that I'm living my life and who I am is giving other people confidence, which I felt really good about. I felt that I was normalizing travel for people who look like me or differently than just the average fit white person in a bikini or with a six pack. It's just like I'm something different that somebody could relate to. And it gave me confidence to just keep pushing through despite the hate, which is, I have to say, it's very minimal compared to the love and the affection that I do get from my audience and other people. But there's a fair bit amount of the hate, and if you let it affect you, it can really, do bad things for your mental health. Yeah.
And I guess you just gotta let it roll off your back like Teflon. Do you have any stories of people? You said I'm giving people confidence. I feel like there's a story or two that you probably have to share about maybe how you connected with one of your viewers or followers or someone along those lines.
I can't say per se a story. I mean, there's been lots of viewers that have reached out, especially aspiring creators who like see what I'm doing. For example, there's a guy that I met in Sri Lanka when I was living there, or he found me through my videos. I actually never met him face to face, but he messaged me just a few months after I left living in Sri Lanka. And he said, "Hey man, I'm starting a YouTube channel and you've inspired me because even though I know you're not Sri Lankan, I know you're not Indian, you look like me. You look like one of us."
Oh, wow.
And that inspires me to make me, it inspires me to create and to think that I could get into this genre. It's not exclusive. And he's been working really hard. I've been sort of training him in the back end. His YouTube channel is called Travel with Supa. He makes great videos all about like local travel tips in Sri Lanka and how to travel as a person who looks the way he looks. And it's really cool. Like I can see the inspiration. I won't say that I inspired him as a person, but the fact that I've normalized what this could be for him is like, maybe I could turn this into a career choice because, hey, somebody who looks like me did it as well. It's not exclusive to just one ethnicity of people.
Sure.
But besides somebody like that, that's just the most recent example. It's lots of comments and DMs about like, hey, you know, I thought this place was off bounds. So I thought this place was just a place that influencers go to, but I see somebody like you and it makes me feel confident that I could go there too. And I see you doing funny things there, and you're not just walking around in slow motion montages on the beach. You're actually showing me how to interact with locals here, or showing me cool people, or even giving me direct access to the people that you were with in the video. And it gives me confidence. And I've had people follow up on small hostels that I've gone to, local restaurants, like hole in the wall restaurants, and they'll send me a DM with the restaurant owner or with the hostel owner, like, hey, actually follow through and I came here, or sending me pictures of tickets that they booked, like flight tickets or confirmation of their hotel stays. And it's really, really cool to know that like I'm actually having an effect on people's lives and they're actually taking action in their own lives through something that I've done.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's rad. And the fact that you not only inspired, I think you're downplaying the fact that you inspired this guy, but also that you've helped him, you know, launch his own thing. And then you have all these people who, you know, you're opening their minds to the possibilities. That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And trying to create. I feel like when I first started, it was hard to look up, to reach out to the creators above me. They just sort of put up a bit of a wall, and it was like, and this isn't to speak badly about them, but I can understand the ego was really big at the time. It was like, oh, we're the travel influencers. It's a new genre on YouTube. Nobody's done this before us, and they were growing like crazy. And they just felt inaccessible. And so the one thing for me and a lot of the people who are in my generation of travel creators, we try to be accessible to the people below us who are coming up now. I want more than anything to be a resource once my channel eventually dies and withers away, which it will happen in the future. I want to be the person who the travel influencer coming up now can look up to and talk to and get advice on analytics and subscribers and what videos to create, what videos not to create. Like, why not? That helps everybody out at the end of the day.
That's awesome. That's a great perspective to have on that. If you have friends that are like you, then tell them thank you for me, because that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I have a bunch of them.
That's amazing. So in the podcasting world, there's a phrase that's called pod fading. I imagine in the YouTube world, there's a similar, maybe a vlog fading or something along those lines. Is that the case, or am I just...
Not one that I could think of per se. I've never heard of a term like that, like vlog fading.
Okay. Have you seen people peter out?
Yes, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that happens all the time.
Absolutely. Okay, so why do you think people peter out, and why do you think people like yourself continue on and keep pushing?
I will say, just for my own like self-criticism, I feel like my channel at the moment is totally on a journey of petering out, and I'm just personally combating it, trying to make sure that doesn't happen. And I don't know if I will succeed, but I'm for sure in that sort of process of on a downward spiral. I will say, on YouTube, you can put in 110%. You can do everything in your power to succeed. But there's certain things that the YouTube algorithm, the YouTube machine sort of just doesn't let you break through. And algorithmic changes in the way that YouTube delivers content it's a perfect algorithm that knows it doesn't matter what kind of content you're creating. It doesn't care the quality or the level or the impact that you're having. It strictly cares about financial gains. It only cares about making money. So generally within the YouTube sphere, a lot of creators know, and the term that we use is creating content for the lowest common denominator. And that's not to speak badly about anybody, but content that resonates with people, like Facebook level content. Content on Facebook is, you don't have to have many brain cells allocated to watching and understanding the content. Usually it's sort of, you scroll through, you watch it, and you're good.
Sure.
And that's sort of the content on YouTube that generally, there's obviously always exceptions to the rule, but generally is the most financially viable. It's content that makes a lot of money. It's something that lots of people will watch and lots of people can resonate with. So, you know, in the content creation sphere, trying to not peter out or trying to not lose your channel means you usually have to sort of give up on some of your morals to follow that money trail, to follow the paper trail.
Sure.
And for me personally, I've just struggled with that a lot, especially recently, where I've tried to create content that doesn't In the Philippines, for example, there's this new concept of Pinoy baiting, which is basically baiting Filipinos into watching videos of foreigners doing specific things. It's something that I've actively partook in the past. I did it a lot, especially in my first round in the Philippines traveling, and I made a lot of good money off of it. I gained hundreds of thousands of subscribers and followers, especially on my Facebook page. And I realized it's not something I feel comfortable doing. It feels disingenuous to what I really believe in. And it's something that I think that petering out on YouTube means that you've probably given up on following the algorithmic trends of what will make you succeed. And it's hard as a creator because sometimes it's demotivating. Like when you pump in, I mean, I have nonstop examples I could bring up about this, but like when you pour your heart and soul into a video you really, really believe in, and I've heard this from every travel creator. I haven't heard of one travel creator who hasn't dealt with this. It will just do terrible. The video that you pour your heart and soul into, and the video that you don't care about at all, that you pour in minimal effort, will do 5 to 6 times the numbers that video did before. And then you get stuck in this loop of, why am I doing this? Why am I even putting in the effort? And one of the biggest things that's the most demotivating is algorithmically, videos that are simple will do better. Videos that have the least amount of editing, that are more trendy, that are more about topics and more about in the now, it will do better. And YouTube doesn't really care about creators as a whole in pushing content that makes a change or pushing content that really is good. It just really cares about making money. And that all they're right. They're a huge website that has to care about making money at the end of the day.
Sure.
But yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons I think is the downfall of lots of people's channels, is sort of like the rejection of following the system, quote unquote, or the algorithm.
Yeah, and the only reason why I was laughing is I've done that. I poured my heart and soul into one video, and I just expected so much from it, and I was just like, really? Are you serious? And a good friend of mine, he's a videographer. He was just like, dude, it doesn't. Likes don't matter. The amount of views don't matter. Girls in skimpy clothes get millions of likes, and likes and views. They don't have any talent per se. Do not allow that to deter you. But that's good to know that there is, kind of an insider's understanding of how things work. Yeah. So, when you say that your podcast is petering out, like I look at it and you're pumping out video, like you pumped out 2 last week. What are you talking about? I'm confused.
I'm just picking back up now, but I've taken not a hiatus per se, but I had brought in my content creation down to as low as like 1 video per month, almost 2 months, which is the longest I've ever gone without uploading content. And it's just because the pandemic has made traveling very, very difficult. And I don't know consciously if I feel correct, like promoting travel as a whole at the moment, because it is, it's weird, it's dangerous. It's a sign of a gray area. We're still learning so much about this disease and the way we're supposed to move forward with it. And, I'm also taking the time now to financially focus on other things besides YouTube until I can get back to traveling full time. So I started another YouTube channel a few years ago that I'm now investing a lot into, which is called the Dinosaur channel. And it's all about, fun, informative videos about dinosaurs. And then I actually bought some plots of land out here, and I'm building a house now. So that's something that I have been working on as well. And I've started a sea turtle conservation network, and just lots of things that I've shifted my focus on here to be in the now until I can get back out there. So that's why my content the last 6 months has been relatively minimal, and I'm just trying to focus more on quality over quantity to make sure every time I upload, it's something I'm really proud of. Even if it doesn't get a lot of views, I want it to be something that I'm happy with. But I've had some life changes recently that are allowing me some more time to, all right, kick it into gear. It's about to be the holiday season. September to December is the time where we make the most money on the internet. Revenues are up. I want to, focus on really grinding now until December, making lots of really great content, focusing on that, upwards of revenue. And then January time, shift focus again and see where life goes, how this pandemic continues to evolve. Okay.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. And that's, it's all good stuff, man. Everything you said, I was just like, wow. Sea turtle conservation. Like what? Other channel. That's great. All that stuff is fantastic. Yeah. So as we talk about the content that you've made in the past, I would say absolutely that you are a prolific content creator. And I'm curious, like, what tips do you have for people to be, to pump out that amount of content? Because I've made videos before. I know the work that goes into them. So what advice do you have to be prolific as far as that goes?
It's always something I'm conflicted with, because there's a side of me that wants to say pace yourself so you don't get burnt out, because I've gone through maybe 4 burnouts and they're really tough to come out of. For example, when I did a circumnavigation of the world in 2017 to 2018, during that time I was uploading, I think I uploaded a new video almost every 2 days. And, I would be creating and editing, and I can't say that it was like quickly edited videos. I was really spending hours on each video, and I got burnt out by the end of it. It really hit me hard to burn out after a year of doing it. Again, I had the most financial success and the most subscriber success and all that growth during that year, but I never really came back from it 100% after that. I had to change the way I created content. So I would say find a mix of pacing yourself and lighting a fire under your ass. Like, that's something that for me was my biggest motivation. Is I saw my bank account dwindling month after month. I realized my parents don't believe in me. My friends aren't necessarily believing in me. Everything I've done up to this point has been minimal success. I need to prove to myself, to everyone around me, that I can do this, that this is real. I set an ultimatum with myself. I was like, if you can't succeed in the next few months doing content that has done well for other people, just go out, copy, and innovate on what people did before you. If you can't succeed doing this, you have to give up. You have to find something else to do. And lo and behold, it worked for me. I did very well, just sort of like finding what other people did, trying to innovate on it, and then also creating content that was new, like things like the cargo ship journey and things that people haven't done before. Yeah. And, with that, I was able to find success.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm glad that you're being very honest about, anxiety and burnout and stuff, because that stuff is real. A lot of people look at y'all's lives and they're like picture perfect. They just show up on a beach and then they film and then they sip on whatever they sip on and their life is wonderful.
I think the one thing I'm really proud about with my channel is I followed that in the beginning, but I definitely in recent years, I've made a video, like a 30-minute video, just talking about my anxiety of flying. When I took a typhoon from one beautiful tropical island to another, or not a typhoon, when I took a ferry from one beautiful tropical island to another and got stuck in the typhoon, I documented the whole journey instead of just passing it over and pretending like it didn't happen or just showing the tropical beautiful parts. I showed the terribleness of sleeping on a ferry for 5 days with spiders and no showering and lack of food and water. And, I try to always show on my channel and be honest of the realities of traveling, showing that it's not all sun and flowers and dandelions and stuff. It's hardcore sometimes. It sucks sometimes. It's really not fun sometimes.
Yeah. And that's real. I'll have to go back and watch that video because I didn't catch that one. But that sounds like, did you feel like you were like, this might be it? A ferry and a typhoon, yes. That sounds insane.
100%. That was my mindset. I remember we went to sleep. We were sailing from Puerto Princesa to this other island called, or to this other city called Iloilo. It's like a big stretch of water. And I remember we went to sleep. They announced that there was a typhoon, a Signal 1 typhoon, but we weren't in danger. And then we woke up in the morning, and I have the clip on that video where I was looking out the window, and the ferry it's this dinky little ferry, really, really small and unstable, and just slamming into the water over and over again, and high winds, and you couldn't see anything on the horizon. And I was like, wow, this might actually be the time that I die. Like, this ferry could easily sink and nobody will ever hear from me again. I was very open to that, to the possibility that that's it, that I was going to die there.
That's real, man.
Yeah.
You came out the other side and you're like, this is going to make a great video.
Yeah, it's going to make good content.
Yeah, that's awesome. So speaking of the not sunshines and flowers part of traveling, I know that you're a huge advocate of travel, but also there is a factor of safety that we all need to consider as we travel. I was in Costa Rica and I was watching your Costa Rica videos and getting nostalgic, but I was in Costa Rica in a hostel. These 2 girls, 3 a.m, come in yelling at each other, and I'm sleeping. I stick my head out the door, and I'm just like, hey, people are sleeping. Y'all need to quiet down. And then I went back to sleep, And the next morning I go out into the commons area, and they're like, yeah, those two girls got robbed at gunpoint walking back to their hostel in San Jose, and they were drunk. But like, that's a real thing that you do need to be careful about. So like, what tips do you tell people to be safe and also have a good time and know that the world is a beautiful place? And there is that dichotomy of both, right?
I will say, like, knock on wood, I've been blessed to have had minimal, like really minimal sketchy encounters or dangerous situations while I'm traveling. In the overall scheme of things, there's been some dangerous moments. Most of them have been self influenced, but I think generally, just a general thing to remember is that the world is not a dangerous place like the news and media tends to portray it. Like you
Sure.
see all these news and headlines about terrorist attacks and diseases and whatever and all that stuff. While there's genuine concerns in a lot of places of danger and terrorism and lots of different things, I don't think the world is as dangerous as it's portrayed. Mm-hmm. That being said, I'm a male, and I tend for in the global perspective to not look like somebody who is affluent or would have a lot of money just because of the color of my skin. Most people look at me and just pass me by. I also dressed very modestly when I travel. I dressed like ripped clothes. Smart. And I tried to blend in. I never travel with fancy gear. I always try to have a minimal camera setup, and I try to not draw a lot of attention to myself. I will say, if your color of skin is white and you're traveling in any other country other than Europe or the United States, you're already a target in a lot of cases. I won't say it's going to be dangerous per se, but you're always going to be a target for higher amounts of money, higher amounts of cost of things, for pickpocketing, for kidnapping, for whatever. And I would also say, if you're a woman, it's something that I've come to learn a lot throughout traveling and hearing the perspective of women, is it's traveling as a woman, especially by yourself in a lot of countries, it's straight up, it's just dangerous. It's not even a safe thing to do. So the only advice I feel qualified to say, because I feel like I'm in a special position of privilege with how I've experienced safety around the world, is that the world is not what it's portrayed on the internet and the media and the news. And it is way, way, way safer than you might think it is. But you have to do research and understand and talk to people who are in your particular demographic. If you're a woman, if you're a certain color of skin, your nationality, your religion, where you come from, you have to talk to them to figure out, because it's very situational. But generally, I wouldn't look at the world in the perspective of it's so dangerous out there. I would always, keep an open mind, because people are amazing. People are way more amazing than they get credit for around the world. We're an amazing species, like we do a lot of really good things for each other. And the kindness and hospitality I've been shown by complete strangers, and this is consistent across all travelers, all world travelers will tell you the same thing. The hospitality and kindness and open arms I've been shown by people who are completely opposite from my religion, political ideology, personal beliefs, has been amazing, absolutely amazing. And it's consistent across every country that I've been to ever. So I can just vouch for that pretty much.
Absolutely. That's been my experience as well. People are just really hospitable and kind, and it's fantastic. So, as one thing I like about what you're doing is you try to make travel accessible to the common man or woman, realizing that not everybody can live high on the hog. Not everybody has $5,000 to throw down on a European vacation. And so what are your tips for traveling on a budget?
I think the biggest thing that I always say, and I've been saying when people ask me this question, because it's one of the most asked questions I've ever gotten, it's just lower your expectations. That's the biggest thing. It's and I always use the same line. It's, if you're planning on going to Paris and your expectation of Paris is waking up on the 4th floor of a boutique hotel and looking out at the Eiffel Tower and having the best croissant in the city, delivered to you bedside, and you imagine that sort of romanticization of what traveling Europe is like in a movie, you're going to end up it's going to cost you a pretty penny. And that's what I feel like a lot of people have that relationship with traveling, is like they imagine what they've seen in the movies and TV, and they want to bring that to their own life. And then they end up spending $5,000 on a European vacation, like you said. My first time going to Paris, I stayed in a really sketchy hostel in some back alley that was like a 12-minute walk from the Eiffel Tower. And instead of having the most expensive croissant in the city, I had one that was given to me for free from some French bakery that was throwing out their croissants at the end of the day. It was still great, but those are the experience. And instead of costing me thousands of dollars, it cost me like 20 euro for the day. And I got to have amazing experience speaking to other backpackers and meeting locals in the city. So I think you have to lower your expectations of what you expect out of your adventures and your travels. You can target certain countries that have, where, depending on where you come from, where your currency is a stronger value. So for a lot of people in the Western world, Southeast Asia, South America, your money will stretch very far when you go to these places. And yeah, it's a mix of lowering your expectations and targeting things that will help you take like financial longevity on your journey. So you just make those changes and make sure that you are open to new opportunities, open to saying yes, using apps like couch surfing and trying to make connections with locals while you're in the different places that you're at. It will aid you in making sure that you can, stretch your money as long as it goes, as far as it can go.
Yeah. Those are great tips. And I mean, going to Southeast Asia versus going to Western Europe, I mean, that's a world of difference as far as cost goes, right? Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome.
Western Europe being one of the most expensive regions is particularly difficult to navigate financially. It's almost something I wouldn't recommend to people if they don't have even like a moderately high budget. But yeah, the things that you can accomplish in Southeast Asia coming from, Western currency, you can live like a king or queen for months at a time, depending on how big your budget is. So it can be really, really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you might fall in love with this country and live there for years at a time like you did, right? So
yes, particularly.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So beyond what you've said about, the beautiful people, wonderful people that you meet and have met, give me your best sales pitch on why people should travel. Like you have someone who's like, I'm happy being in Central Arkansas, or even somewhere cooler, like I'm happy to be in New Jersey. Like, why should people travel?
I'm a strong believer of that not everybody should travel. I really believe that. I think that there's some people that this lifestyle, or even, I think generally traveling will be good for anybody to open up your perspective. But like, I think that not everybody should travel. There's some people who have to do a lot of inner working on themselves before they can go out and expose themselves to the world. Because the thing is, when you travel, you're sort of a representative or an ambassador of the place that you came from. And some people can be really nasty when they travel. They show off the worst of their worst traits, or they're not willing to open up their mind. And I think that no amount of traveling for certain people will open up their mind because they come out with certain expectations. So I think, for one, not everybody should travel. I don't think it's something that everybody should do. I think some people, if they're content with their lifestyle and they're happy with where they're at and they're happy going to their resort in the same country and just vacationing in the same place, by all means, God bless, enjoy where you're at in life. But if you have a yearning to learn and to understand different people, to understand people that come from wildly different backgrounds than you, if that's something that you genuinely want and desire, then I think you should travel, because you will learn that stuff. You will expand your brain in ways that no college classroom, no university can ever do for you. You will learn things and you'll educate yourself on the history, the politics, the socio-economic, the all the issues, struggles, benefits, and drawbacks of being a person from a certain place. But it only works if you really want to learn that stuff. I try to make it a point, and it's stuff that I don't necessarily film, when I travel, to really have those tough conversations with people and not necessarily impose an idea or my beliefs, but just listen. I just like to listen to what people have to say. Like traveling, for example, in Eastern Europe, in like the former Yugoslavian states, so the Balkan region, Macedonia, Serbia, Albania, Kosovo. When I went there, it was so interesting, the dichotomy of the different, how every nation kind of hates each other and they have a different relationship with the West and the East. And it was so interesting. And I felt like I learned so much more than I could have in a college course or in a high school class about this stuff. So I think, for one, that if you're willing to listen, you're willing to open your mind and you want to, I think that should be your biggest desire, or the biggest reason you should travel. And I think, two, if you have a desire to experience new things, to see things that will blow your mind, and you're not content with your day to day, if you want to be wowed and you want to be shocked and you want to experience things and have stories of a lifetime, I think that travel and the lifestyle of consistently traveling will give you that in ways that you couldn't if you were to go on a vacation once a year to Disney or to Universal Studios or to take a road trip across whatever country that you live in. I think that if it will give you memories of a lifetime. So if that's something that you want, that's something that you're looking for, travels for you, and that's why you should travel.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you're particularly talking about international travel as opposed to domestic. So in regards to traveling, right? In regards to someone who hasn't made this a part of their lifestyle and they want to get started, what advice do you have for them to, do it so it doesn't become like this overwhelming thing? Like, how can they get started in a way that is feasible and sustainable, I guess?
I'll just explain from my perspective what I started, and I think it's a model that a lot of people can practice on. But I understand, again, that a privilege, nationality, financial situation all comes into play with this stuff. Because, again, traveling is not something that everybody can do, or at least not easily. It depends on how bad you want it, I guess, from certain places that you come from. But for me, early on, what I did was to just sort of expand and get into that mindset of traveling. I just traveled within my state, in the state of Florida. I would just drive around. That was the first sort of trip that I did with a car that I owned. And then second trip around was just trying to go to a few more states, like drive out of the state and venture out and experience things outside of the place that I knew so well. And so I think exploring your own neighborhood, your own area at first, it can help definitely with financial longevity and feasibility of how you can spread your money. Because if you're spending money within the same currency as yourself, it's the most financially stable for you, and you don't have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to go anywhere. So doing budget travel within your own area, even though while it might not be so interesting to you in the beginning, you'd be shocked how many things you can discover in your immediate surrounding that you didn't know of, especially if you don't know your area well. So I think that's sort of the first step to discovering, if you don't have a big budget, or if you just want to test it out, if you just want to see if it's for you, try to push yourself out of your comfort zone, in your comfort zone, if that makes sense. It's
sure. Yeah. No, that's fabulous. Absolutely. That's great. That's great. And so as you have traveled, how many countries have you been to, by the way?
50 exactly now.
50 exactly. I think I heard that, and I was wondering. Yeah, so the Philippines was your last stop, and then okay, got it. So we're both Americans. I love America. At the same time, I realize that no culture is perfect, and there's a lot that we can learn from other cultures. So, what lessons have you learned, or what great things have you learned from other cultures that you think Americans could look into and embrace?
Actually, it's really interesting. Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying that I think America is amazing, and while there's lots of issues, I took a year in 2018 to basically just travel the States and live within the United States and experience the United States for what it is. And I realized that, again, that media hype and that sort of constant from both sides of the political spectrum in the United States that we get, telling us that our country is falling apart and it's a terrible place and that people hate each other, is simply not true. It is not the truth. It's not the truth that I've come to understand about the United States. People in the US are so compassionate and amazing, and I've learned so much within the States. But something that I think the United States could really, really, really benefit from, and it's something that I'm actively trying to make a change in the United States, is a culture of traveling. It's a culture of getting out of the United States. And it's something that a lot of people, especially Europeans that I meet abroad, some of my closest friends are from Europe in the world, and they live here with me even on this island. It's something that Europeans have a hard time understanding is why Americans are so uninformed about the world around them. Why do they have such a hard time understanding and resonating with people internationally? And that's because you have to understand, with a US passport, with a US ID, I'm sorry, not even with a US passport, but just with your ID, you can experience like almost every geographical region of the world. You can go to the tropics, you can go to the Pacific Ocean, you can go to, the tundra in Alaska, you can go to the wetlands and the mountains and the desert, and whatever you want, you have access to in the United States, or the territories of the United States. And so when you have that, and when this country is the sort of pinnacle of society and culture and finances of the world, it's hard to develop a yearning to want to understand. And so something that I think, it's something that I've benefited from, and people generally can benefit from with traveling, is just learning the international perspective, learning the international language, learning, I think that Filipinos can resonate more with Europeans on a mindset perspective than they can with Americans, just because of how open-minded a lot of people in Europe are. And I think some things, like some specific things that I've learned in the Philippines, for example, it's how to be less angry and how to be more patient, because this country being an archipelago, it creates for, even in the biggest cities, if you're on a rush, forget about it. Forget about being in a rush to do anything. It's just not possible. And they stick to that in the most religious mindset. It doesn't matter what schedule you close with somebody here, they will always be late. So I've just learned to set my expectations, don't falter too much, don't get angry, just sort of try to stay a little bit more relaxed. It's something I struggle with on a day-to-day, but it's definitely possible. And I think being considerate, in Sri Lanka, is something that I learned is anytime that you go somewhere, please sit, please sit. You walk into a building, please sit, please sit, please sit. And like, to me as an American, I get angry. I was like, tell me to sit. I'm standing in line. I want to buy a phone, or I'm trying to buy a phone case. Tell me to sit. I don't want to sit down. That's my immediate perspective. And then I realized it's like, this is coming from a place of consideration. If they had the equivalent of something like Walmart in Sri Lanka, if you'd walk into a Walmart, there would be an area where people would ask you to sit down to make sure that you're okay and that you're being accommodated for. It's like, I can't imagine that happening in US society, but that's something that I learned, is like, being more considerate. Like, I want in my future, in my life, to, when I invite somebody over to my house, showing them the little gestures that mean that I really care, while sometimes in a different culture that can be misconstrued as something annoying. Like, if you really look at it, it's beautiful that a lot of different cultures have that sort of culture of accommodating and trying to help as much as they can and trying to do something. So I really, really feel like I've learned that from those two countries particularly. For sure. And then spicy food, tolerance for spicy food. For sure.
Yeah. I guess, you got to roll with the punches on that. Otherwise you're not eating, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, we're coming up on time, and I do have a few more questions, particularly on, you shared a lot about, traveling and how it's helped you. What has traveling taught you about life? And I know that's a very broad question.
Very deep for 8 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, it's 8 p.m. over here. So I get deep close to bedtime. So what has traveling taught you about life in general? And you can go as deep or as shallow or as deep as you'd like. So
well, the one thing I've learned is that life is great, and if you follow my blog and you subscribe to my Instagram, that you're gonna get the best. I think it's taught me that, for one, life is really precious, and we have a really limited time on the earth. And it's taught me that I personally feel like I need to make the most of my time, and sometimes that makes me stretch myself too thin in certain projects. Like I am right now, I'm in like 20 different projects. And this podcast is the only thing giving me sort of a break for a minute to recalculate and think through what I want to do. So I really appreciate it. But I think that it's definitely taught me that life is precious, that we have a limited amount of time, and that I personally have come to the conclusion that I want to make the most of my time on this planet, and the most of the time, especially that I have at my younger years, like being 25 right now and being in the position that I'm in and being the way I look and the way I feel health wise and everything. I want to make the most of every single day and every single moment that I have. I don't want to rest or lie in bed or just wait or be depressed or whatever the situation is. I want to make the most of it. And that's the one thing I really feel like I've learned and I've come to the conclusion of while traveling.
Absolutely. So that's the most positive YOLO statement I've ever heard, because that's good stuff. Okay, cool. So is there anything that maybe I should have asked you that I didn't, or final thoughts that you want to leave the people with? And I'm just going to leave this wide open for you to pass or to move on, or share whatever you want to share.
I think the only thing I would say is, if there's anything if you made it to this point in the podcast and you listened all the way to the end, it's just generally in life, wherever we're heading as a race right now with the way this pandemic is and what our options will be for, travel and global interactions in the future, while it's still kind of uncertain of where that's going to go and how that's going to turn out to, is I think the one thing that I've learned, especially more recently, is just keep an open mind. Like, make sure your mind is open with everything that you do, whether you're traveling or you're venturing into a new business or you're trying to get into something new. Just keep an open mind to every possibility and every opportunity, and be optimistic. Be optimistic about the world around you, because it really is, and it's something I struggle with very regularly. But make sure that you stay optimistic. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose hope in things, because the world and people are generally a lot better than they get credit for. Really, they really are. And the world is a lot better of a place than it gets credit for. So just keeping an open mind and keeping yourself optimistic, I think, will make the world a better place overall if we all sort of adapt that mindset.
Oh gosh, that's a great place to end on. Very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate those thoughts, and that's important for me to think about too. So the way that I like to finish my podcast is I like to do a little freestyle rap.
Okay.
just to kind of end it. So we're gonna do this. Tell me, can you hear this? You rocking with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. Yo, the boy
I'm gonna get the
raw.
sunnies on.
I'm talking about tall. That one dude, he teach classes, got the sunglasses, taking you to school. The whole freaking world is the curriculum. Yo, he's flipping, son. I'm talking about a whole bunch of flights on the mic and also some ships. See him on the cargo, spit a bunch of heart flows. That's what I'm saying. Across the Atlantic, no time to panic. You gotta take it in, and that's what I say. You just gotta begin. Keep on going. Be comfortable in the freaking spot that you got. You gotta start somewhere, maybe your state, and that's what I say. Yo, go create the life that you want. That's YOLO. That's what I'm saying. Go solo if you freaking have to. Yo, I just rap true. Talk about things. No, I'm not bothered by the things that I see in the international. I come straight through. You gotta be irrational with your optimism. Yo, get a vision and keep on pushing. That's what you gotta do. Take a bunch of the bricks and just stay building. And that's what I say. Yo, I'm just chilling. Don't do fake things on the freaking gram. That is that dude. He is the man. He comes straight through and show you the globe, so you could just know and open your mind when I'm throwing a rhyme. And that's how we do. Come straight through. Just create with the dinosaurs that go raw. That's what I'm saying. No freaking flaws. A whole bunch of conservation up in that nation in the Philippines. He is really here doing a bunch of things, and he never freaking stopping. And that's what I say. I'm saying what's poppin'. You just gotta love it. Put it on the budget. Eat a croissant. That is just free. Something that you see at the Eiffel Tower. And that's what I'm saying. You gotta take that power of your budget and make it freaking stretch. And that's what I'm saying. Come through and catch his freaking show up on YouTube. And you gotta click through and give a few views, cause it's really quite dope. And that's what I'm saying. Words that I got. Yo, I'm just staying up in your mind. And that's how it goes, and that's what I said with a freestyle flow.
Y'all, ladies and gentlemen, you better tune in to the Young Legends podcast. You better eat a croissant, mother flower, baby. That was amazing.
Thank you, man. I try.
That was awesome, man.
Nah, man. I'm glad you were having fun, man. I've never had a guest get as pumped as you are, so thank you for that, man. That was a lot of fun.
Dude, I have to say, I've done a lot of podcasts in my years doing this. This is the most fun I've had on a podcast, for real. Like, the hour flew by. You're a great host. The questions were super entertaining. I love that you did research and learned about it. And the freestyle rap is for somebody who's a rap fan, just generally, I freaking love it. That was awesome. Super cool.
I'm glad, man. I enjoyed our time too. I just really glad for connecting with you, and
yeah, man.
Thank you for answering my my message and being on here. I'm really pumped to get this out to the people and show them all the good things that you're doing. And man, that by the way, the New York City on a $10 budget was I think that was the last video I watched. I was like, is this actually happening? I was like, you did it.
It's hardcore.
Yeah, that's definitely hardcore. Very cool. Yeah. So thanks so much for being on. how can the people find you on the interwebs? Drop whatever handles and channels you want.
On the fancy old interwebs, you can find me anywhere on any platform. Pretty much just look up The Traveling Clatt. That's traveling with one L and Clatt with two T's. And if you're into dinosaurs and you like paleontology, I have a new venture that I'm starting up. It's called the Dinosaur channel on YouTube. I'm really passionate about it. It's all about finding sort of informative videos for dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures. So if it's something you're into, I'd love the support and I'd love for you to check it out.
Very cool. And I will make sure to tag all of that in the show notes. Tal, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're doing awesome things.
You too, man.
All right. Have a good day, man.
See you.
All right. So that's the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot from it. And I hope you put what you learned into practice. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And also, if you would please rate and review this podcast, that would be super helpful in getting the word out about it. All right, so that's all I got for now. Until next time, peace.